Sets the stage for today's big talking point, and our talking point is simply this: how should India respond to Donald Trump's H-1B crackdown? Is there an opportunity for India in this crisis? Will big tech now send jobs offshore? AI plus H-1B curbs. Are we going to see more job cuts? Is that the real concern? And how does India weather the H-1B storm, as it's been called in some part? Joining me now, TV Mohandas Pai, Chairman, Arvind Capital. Praveer Jha, he's founder and CEO at Praveer Jha People Advisory, worked at top level at HR in several companies. Shankar Iyer, political economy analyst and columnist author, joins me. And I'm also joined by first guest, Sophie Alcorn, is Silicon Valley-based immigration lawyer. I want to come to you, Sophie, because you can tell us the very latest. 2 days after Donald Trump threatened to disrupt the entire H-1B visa, is there complete clarity that H-1B visas, this $100,000, will only operate for those who have, for fresh petitions? No one who's living in the US or renewing his visa will either have to pay an annual fee or will in any way be troubled by this new directive. Is that very clear now?
No, it is not very clear at all, unfortunately. Only 3 days later, so many questions remain, more questions than answers. It's clear that renewals will not be affected. It's clear that next year's H-1B visa lottery process will be affected. But there are so many gray areas regarding all of the flavors and variations of various types of H-1B petitions that could be filed in the interim. So we are waiting for new guidance. USCIS just released new guidance on their website, talking about more changes that might be coming in the next months through the regulatory process and other mechanisms. And they are emphasizing that they want the H-1B program to be used to only hire the best of the best temporary foreign workers, in their words, in this latest release.
I've also seen in the latest note that's come from the US administration, doctors could be potentially excluded. That are we saying that if I'm an Indian doctor looking to go to America, I could get some benefits of exclusion? Is that all still work in progress? Is there any clarity in that regard?
It's completely a work in process. That is a wonderful question. There is something called a national interest exception in this proclamation, and we are awaiting more details. We've seen national interest waivers in the past when it comes to the EB-2 national interest waiver green card process, or in COVID during the travel ban, there was also a national interest exception. We are waiting for details, but what the proclamation makes clear is that the president or the administration or US Citizenship and Immigration Services or the State Department, they can determine if a particular industry is in the national interest, if a particular company or job classification or worker is in the national interest. So this is also an area where we're waiting for more guidance. We don't know what that process is going to be. We also don't even know how somebody applying for a new H-1B to work at a hospital next week would have their employer either pay the $100,000 fee or request this national interest exception fee waiver. So as business has just opened on Monday morning here in the United States, agencies, government institutions, companies, employers, workers are still scrambling to try to pick up what's the latest, what does this mean, how is it going to be implemented, and how does it affect me?
But there are legal challenges already in place to challenge whether the president can issue such executive orders. So that's another X factor, isn't it?
Absolutely. There are a number of lawsuits that have been furiously worked on the entire weekend, with attorneys probably getting no sleep since Friday. And we expect that as the plaintiffs are coming together for those lawsuits, that many will be filed this week in various district courts, representing various groups of employers and H-1B workers. And if a judge decided in any one of those lawsuits that there was a legal basis to issue a temporary restraining order, that could immediately freeze this entire proclamation from Friday and its application until further notice through the litigation process. And then the regulatory process would have to adapt to that based on what's going on through the court system. So
Right.
there is no certainty here. There are only more and more questions.
Okay, more and more questions, as you said, a lot of uncertainty. As someone said, uncertainty has become the biggest tariff in the world we live in. Sophie Alcorn, for joining me there from Silicon Valley. Appreciate your joining us and explaining what the mood there is. Which brings me to my guest here in India. And Mohandas Pai, pick up from what Sophie Alcorn said. I saw a column that you've written in today's Times of India where you've suggested there's a huge opportunity. You almost suggest, don't worry, there's nothing to worry about. This is actually an opportunity for India and Indian governments to invest big in AI, in deep tech, and actually benefit from the fact that many engineers who otherwise would have gone to America may now stay on in India. Are you being excessively optimistic, Mr. Pai?
Raldeep, I'm being realistically optimistic looking at data as usual. Please remember, there is no implication for this year. It is for the next year. There's an existing stock of H-1B, point number one. Point number two, Indian companies have been reducing their reliance on H-1B. They got 55, 65% of staff in the US who are locals. And the very important point, if you read the MIT report on the use of AI in global enterprises, very few global enterprises have actually used AI to transform their business. Nothing much has happened. And the only people who can make it happen for them on the global scale are the IT service companies, the global top 10. And for them, this will be a big, big boost to their business. And it's going to come in the next maybe 1 year, 1.5 years. That's what people are talking. And now it will be done offshore. Please remember, during COVID, work went on fully offshore. Nobody traveled. And then we have the GCCs come here as a wave because the CTOs in the US found that they don't need people sitting in front of them to do critical work. They can be anywhere. And if you are in Dallas and you are Dallas working and you got a CTO in New York, it doesn't matter. And whether you are in Bangalore or Dallas, right? So they have shifted a lot of the work and the critical work is being done here. So more work will move offshore. Projects 90-95% will move offshore. And that will be good news because enterprises want this kind of a transformation. Are people going to pay that $100,000? We don't know. We have to wait 6-8 months for them to understand how the new business model will work, what is needed, what is the gap, etc. And then they'll decide. As of now, I think is there something they're all working on. And I think there'll be more work coming this side for very many reasons. As for people going there, Radhip, I just want to point out, look, the top 20 companies pay more than $100,000 to the staff. All right. And the cost to them for the travel up and down and their medical insurance and everything else is about $120,000, $125,000. And they charge their clients for the project work $150,000 to $200,000. So these are not cheap workers. These are not cheap workers for the top 20, 25 companies who get the substantial part of the visas. And there are some body shops who get a few visas who may be doing cheap things and not very cheap. So this whole idea that people are coming, replacing local labor, losing jobs, doesn't hold water because the cost is very high for getting somebody from outside. It's just the sheer unavailability of talent for enterprises and many of the tech companies. For example, for Microsoft and others, the cost doesn't matter. The cost doesn't matter. If they get people in America, they'll hire people in America. And all of them have got huge number of people here. In India, the GCs have got 1.9 million. They've got highly trained staff. They may want an expert to go from here and work in Microsoft for 2 years. They'll be probably paying him $250,000, $300,000. So I think the whole thing has changed in the last 5 to 7 years. So we have to wait and see what is the actual impact. And I think, we're not going to see much impact in the next 6 to 12 months.
We're not going to see impact in more the same. Since you mentioned data, I want to throw data and get you, Prabir Jha, to respond because you've been tracking the HR sector in this country. Just global layoffs in the IT sector. Over 1 lakh jobs were cut across the world in 2025. Intel announced 25,000 job cuts, 25% of their total workforce. Microsoft cut 9,000 jobs, 4% of its global workforce. TCS has cut over 12,000 jobs. Top 5 Indian IT companies added only 4,787 employees in Q1. So this is coming at a difficult time for the IT sector. Let's be very clear. Here is Mohandas Pai optimistically realistic that the glass is half full, but there are concerns. This couldn't have come at a more difficult time in a way for the IT sector as well.
Yes, Rajdeep, but I do tend to agree a lot with what Mohan already has said, because directionally, I don't think it's gloom and doom for sure. What's really happening is it's actually a rebalancing and a reconfiguration of the industry. And, sometimes we get taken away just by sheer numbers and headlines that the media reports, right? It's not as gloom and doom. I think it's that stage and phase where it's getting rebalanced. See, what is happening actually is there's a qualitative shift in the kind of jobs that are getting created and jobs that are getting decimated. And we have to understand that. And this context of H-1B also, because you were talking about implications for India. One, I do share the optimism that Mohan talked about the GCC reality actually getting bigger, because there is a value, and it is not just IT jobs. GCCs in India are actually doing jobs across functions. So I think it's a very, very positive thing, and I don't think that's going to come down. What is very interesting for us, however, I mean, so all the positives that Mohan said, I agree with. I just want to call out that this reality is showing us a little bit of the underbelly that the Indian education system, or maybe the Indian IT system actually is revealing. There is no doubt that top end Indian talent will continue to be accommodated, whether it's $10,000, $100,000, $50,000. Good talent will always have someone who's going to be willing to pay for you. But one of the things that we have to realize is that the huge army of Indian IT workers who were there are not qualitatively all at the same level. And I think this churn, while it creates an opportunity for India, either through their rebadging as an offshore worker, or coming back and working in entrepreneurial or any other quasi opportunities, the truth is that our quality of education and the quality of the cutting edge skill, that I think needs to be put under a microscope. And this crisis, I think, will do that. And this entire mindset shift from volumes and pairs of hands and numbers of people, which attracts attention, right, will shift to actually more value adding skills. So I think there is also going to be a fair bit of churn in the way the dispersion of the IT talent is going to kind of be looked at over the next few months.
But you see, the question, Shankar Iyer, I repeat it. All of this comes at a time when the country has gone through major, or is going through a major churning in the nature of jobs. Thousands of people have gone to America over the years with the American dream. Not all of them were super skilled. The super skilled workers may well get protected, but there are many others who are struggling both domestically because of cuts that are taking place in the job market, particularly with AI coming into doing many jobs, as well as now the H-1B concerns. Do you believe, therefore, that the optimism being shown by Mohandas Pai and to some extent by Probir is justified? Even in AI, we are well behind the curve. Most people believe, for example, on deep tech and AI, we are well behind, for example, the Chinese, who've leapfrogged in many ways. Mohan is, of course, shaking his head, but let Shankar respond, and then I'll come to you, Mohan.
Well, I'm acquainted with doubts, so let me place a couple of things on the plate here. India's competitive edge in technology, hardware, IT was flagged in 1964. And then what we did after that is on. It is just the 1991 crisis and the Y2K which enabled India to brand itself as a tech giant, just as Sony did it for Japan. So I am not as sanguine about this, because I have, let's put it, more skepticism about the ability of governments in India to leverage any opportunity that arises from a crisis. The crisis has to be full blown for the opportunity to be leveraged. Let's look at what Trump is doing. It's not a mindless game. I mean, he might send you a tweet wishing you a birthday and all. That doesn't mean diddly squat. Okay. What is Trump doing? Trump is attacking your political model and your business model by attacking the by imposing this fee, which is basically a tariff, which is basically a tax on Indian companies or an Indian individual, whichever, you are imposing a cost. And that cost is affecting which state? Your own report now pointed out, Telangana and Andhra Pradesh. Now, there is a sliver of politics there you should sort of recognize. The second is he's attacking the business model of Indian IT sector. What he doesn't know is a large part of these H-1B visa volumes, as Probir put out, will probably get eliminated as AI takes over. I mean, a large number of the companies, Amazon, Google, and all, almost 40-45% of the coding is being done by AI. A large part of consultancies are dropping out youngsters. The biggest problem in the US is around 800,000 college graduates at the entry level don't have jobs. And those are the questions that Trump is sort of trying to talk to his base. Now, what can India do? It has to figure out how it can expand the GCC. It has to figure out how it must not do what it did in the 60s and 70s and 80s by imposing all kinds of nonsensical taxes and compliances. I mean, we were supposed to be the startup capital, and then we had the angel tax, and then Mohan had to run around the whole world to get it deleted. So these kind of things we should avoid. Global capacity centers is a huge opportunity. How do you make it work? And the other thing is that while we sort of look at the overseas opportunity, what do we need to do to create the Indian opportunity? What is the extent of computerization in India? What is the extent of robotization in India? What is the extent of use of AI in government? All of these are creating opportunities. And finally, let me leave you with a thought. Maybe you should call Sundar Pichai, Satya Nadella, Shantanu, and all those people who went on a H-1B visa route and have now are running major corporations, and ask them, okay, how do we do a jugaad on this guy? Because Trump is not a normal politician.
Right. You know, given what I've just heard from Shankar Iyer, Mohandas Pai, you were shaking your head when I mentioned about the nature of Chinese investments, for example, in deep tech and AI. You seem to believe that we're still very much in that race. Speaking to many people across borders in the United States and here, you get a sense that India is still playing catch up. Unless Indian companies and government, you yourself mentioned the government needs to get its act together. It seems to me almost that you believe overnight this is going to happen. We are still already several steps behind the countries like China on critical issues which will shape the future.
Radhe, let me explain about AI again. There are multiple levels of AI. There is the large learning model, which is dominated by only two countries in the world, the United States, which has got 5 or 6 big companies, and China with DeepSeek, all right? And that is a subscription model used by enterprises and used by individuals like you and me to do some work. The total revenue available to the American company is about $30 billion. Now, how do enterprises use AI? Enterprises cannot use ChatGPT and say, hey, ChatGPT, do this work for me. It doesn't work that way. Enterprises run very large, complex systems. That's what the MIT study says. For them to use AI differently in the large, complex system, they need service providers to work with them and write the code or change the code and make it work, monitor it, and make sure they're safe. That is a huge opportunity, and that's going to give them productivity of 20, 30, 40% and release a lot of dollars. Now, China cannot do that globally. China is not attuned with the West. The only country that can do that will be India. Even all global companies like Accenture.
No, but Mr. Pai, would you concede our IT sector model has largely, many believe, been exploitative? We haven't done the high skill.
That's rubbish.
We need to
move
from a more exploitative model of IT to a high skilled model now.
That's total rubbish. That's total rubbish. Please, you don't act like a leftist out there abusing people and calling them. This industry is $235 billion exports. It's the biggest industry in India. $170 billion of cash comes in. 6 million people are employed. $3 to $4 billion are paid on training people. No industry trains people like this. Please, I mean, you got to be sanguine, man. Don't make these loose remarks that, these are exploitative and all that. Okay, please. Now,
No, no, no.
let me
One minute,
explain to you,
Mohan.
please. I need
I
to
am
explain to you,
raising the
Radhip.
point that this
Radhip,
gives us an
Radhip,
opportunity,
I
as
need-
you
I
as
need
you
to
have
explain
said
to you.
you have said for
Explain.
greater investment in high tech, in deep
No,
tech, in
Radhip, let
AI.
me explain.
Your point is taken. Your
Let
point
me
is taken.
explain,
Have
please.
we
Don't
made that
understand.
leap?
You are not understanding, Radhip. Radhip, there is the services model which use innovative products for enterprises. There is the product model where you need capital, you need deep markets, and the only product countries in the world are the United States and China, not Europe. Where are the products from Europe apart from SAP and a small products? France has got Mistral, LLM model, which is just going nowhere, right? I mean, is they investing, pouring money? No other country has got it. Japan doesn't have it. Japan is $4.5 trillion. We need capital for our startups and deep tech companies to grow and to scale up. We need local markets here which don't exist. We are a small $4 trillion economy. We are not the United States. We're not comparable to the United States. Despite that, we've done a great job in being one of the greatest countries
Right.
for software services. And we can get into products. It'll take us 5-10 years. And you need $15-20 billion from LLM. Who is going to give money?
Okay.
Anybody going to give money here? There's no money in this country. Please. There's no
Okay,
money in this
I want
country for
quick 30
investment.
second. I want quick 30 second. I take your. Okay. 30-second reaction, Prabir and Shankar, very quickly. Do you believe that we are in a position, therefore, to create more jobs, those kind of highly skilled jobs, a model, as Mohandas Pai is saying, which will adjust to the new global realities?
Whatever the effort and whatever the time, I think directionally, yes, I think that's very important. But I see it a little differently, Rajdeep. I also think that the entire obsession may not be with IT, because IT consumed a lot of non-IT or non-computer science engineers. I think there are many other avenues that India is exploring. And to me, it is going to be, if you look at it as a macro issue, it will
Right.
be about many other industries actually getting their share of talent, which itself will have a multiplier effect. So let's not only stay with IT as the panacea and the solution for economic challenges.
Well, Rajdeep,
Okay.
I
Shankar
think-
Iyer, final word. Very quickly.
I think we should stop smoking our own supply and getting high on it. We should examine the ground reality and work on what needs to be done. There must be ways. If DeepSeek could do with lesser capital than OpenAI, then India should be able to do stuff with lesser capital. That is all there is to entrepreneurship, technology, scientific innovation, whatever you call it. And the government should swear that in the next 10 years, it will not create any new hardship. And if they create, they will be held accountable. There should be maybe put an SIT in Supreme Court every time the kind of compliance and regulatory cholesterol is being
Right.
imposed on entrepreneurship. This can't go on. It's unsustainable.
Okay, let's leave it there. It is, as I said, a challenging time, but every challenge provides opportunities. The question is whether India can seize this opportunity and perhaps transform some of the kind of
That's it.
economy that we have seen in recent times. And we'll wait and see whether that happens. Mohandas Pai, Shankar Iyer,
you.
Prabir Jha, appreciate you joining me here on the news today.